I'm sure you've heard a cyclist say 175 cranks is the best cranks length for you, and then another cyclist says 170 and 165 is the best that you can get. And some experts says longer cranks are better, other experts says shorter cranks are better. But within all of this information available on the web, I personally think that you need to find whatever is best for you. You need to test those out and make your own conclusion. The other day I was scrolling on YouTube, as I do pretty much every single night, and I stumbled across the second channel of my buddy Cam Nichols, which is RCA, Road Cycling Academy, and Neil, his bike fitter friend, share a lot of very good knowledge across the video catalog, and I highly suggest that you guys go watch it. But in this specific video about crank length, this little segment there really piques my interest and curiosity for me to challenge what Neil is saying right there.
If you're a criterium racer and you've got a big bomby sprint and all you do is you go out on weekends and race in the A-grade crit and you kill yourself and you've got a big sprint and you're trying to kill everyone in the last 10-15 seconds of the race and you're a big powerfully built rider, going to a set of 165s would probably have enough downsides that it would not be a good idea, right? The shorter cranks reduce your ability to generate instantaneous bursts of torque, which is why they're not so flash with mountain biking and criterium racing. So if you're a crit racer with a big, powerful sprint, going shorter is probably not a great move because you need to be able to change speed in a crit race rapidly.
So Neil says here with a lot of assumption that longer cranks are better for sprinters and crit racers. And to have been racing crits for a long time and to have actually never really ridden longer cranks, I thought it was the perfect opportunity for me to test out what he was saying right there. So using the Stages SB20 bike that I am lucky to have my hands on, it is super easy for me to change the crank length from 175 to 165. So I decided to do a test protocol and actually see if there was either a difference in terms of power output, difference in terms of cadence, which crank length would give me a higher wattage. So for today's testing, I'm going to do 8 all-out sprint 15 seconds each. The first one will be with cranks of 165, which is something I've also never ridden. Second sprint, 175. Third sprint, 165. Fourth sprint, 175. And just like that until I do 8 sprints. So in theory, between each sprint, we should be able to see a downward slope. So the first sprint should be the highest, second one should be a bit lower, a bit lower, a bit lower, a bit lower, and a bit lower until the last sprint. But this was not the case. Let's jump straight to the footage and then I'm gonna go on the computer and we'll analyze each sprint segment to see what works best for me. Alright guys, so we're now on the computer and we are ready to analyze all the data. So as you can see here, I've done a full hour just to get the leg started, just to get a warm-up in. Average 226, heart rate 142, and cadence 88. So, and after that, that's where I started my 7 all-out sprints. And as you see here, something already shows that there might be a little bit something wrong here. So I don't know if you see, but the peak here, with that glance, just a glance here for the power guys, this is higher, lower, higher, lower, higher, lower, higher. So This is really interesting, so let's dive into the data here. So if I look at the first sprint, which was 165 mil cranks, so especially at the cadence here, I can quickly go up the cadence here from 90 and all the way to 115. And this really brings and spike up the power super quickly. It tops here at 1200.07 for a couple seconds, and then 1100, and then it slowly goes down as the cadence go down also a little bit as well, until here we finish the sprint 86 cadence and 854 watts. That was with 165 cranks. Now if we go to sprint number 2, 175 here. And here's really interesting is that as I put the hammer down from a 300 watts to my sprint, here I can only top to 1000 watts. 1009 watts, 27. And then I just circle around that 900 mark until it goes down. Cadence wise, I did not really go that high up on the cadence. It really went from 100 and all the way down from 100 to 95, 85. So that was sprint number 2 with 175. If I go back to 165 cranks. And here, as you see, as soon as I launch my sprint, I'm able to get quickly from 100 to 115 watts. And this really peaks all the way my power from 300 to 1100, 1190, almost 12, and then I can keep above 1000 watt for that 15-second duration. And at the end, cadence slows down here, power goes down a little bit, and I finish the sprint. Fourth sprint, 175 cranks. Again, here I have a little bit more cadence variation. I go from 98, 97 to 110, which was the highest, but the peak power, it doesn't go above 1075. It doesn't go into the 1100. It stays at that 1000 watts. It goes down and it finishes up. Next sprint, fifth sprint. Again, cadence peak 113, wattage from 300 all the way to 1300 watts. And then I keep that power up, and at the end of that 15 seconds, that's where I go down under. Second to last sprint, 175 cranks. Again, from 300, RPM goes up, only up to 110, and power barely hit 1100. Sprint, and again, cadence goes up a little bit more, faster up cadence, and wattage from 300 all the way to 1242. And I keep that 1242 for a longer amount of time. I stay above that 1000 watts for way longer. If I just try to look at the average here, as soon as we're at the kick and all the way to the end, we're average for 15 seconds 1034 watts. And if I go to the second to last sprint, I just take here at the top, and the average is 866. The average is at most 200 watt less. All right, so this was very interesting results, and I really hope that you guys can have the chance to test it out for yourself. But for me, the answer is pretty easy, is 175 cranks. That longer cranks is definitely not as good for me as a sprinter, as a crit racer. I will stick with 170 and maybe even go down to 165 on my crit cranks. And because there's another huge benefit here that I feel like Neil haven't really touched, is when you're riding crits, there's a lot of corners, and corners you need to stop pedaling because they are so tight. But with shorter cranks, you can get able to pedal more throughout the corner, thus reducing the amount of burst of power that you need to do after the turn. So put that in perspective, if you're riding longer cranks, while you're leaning, you would need to stop earlier to pedal and wait later to start pedaling again. If you're rocking shorter cranks, you might be able to pedal all this turn, generating a 350 watts. So at the end, your burst of power will be less as a 175 cranks. So this is a huge advantage I feel that Neil overlooked in mentioning that crit racers should be riding 175 cranks. So as I've tested, 175mm cranks is just not for me. There's a bunch of other researches and documentation and articles that you guys can read about crank length. I will leave a few in the description down below. Go read them, go make your opinion on what should be best for you, and just test it out. Alright guys, so this is it for today's quick video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please don't forget, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you aren't already. And my name is Charles, and I will see you guys on the road or into the next video. Peace.